have your attention, please? The ceremony that you are about to witness is an army replay ceremony to be conducted in honor of the unknowns. It is requested everyone remain silent and steady during this ceremony. All military personnel in uniform will render the hand salute, and it is appropriate for all of them to place their right hand over their heart upon the command of present arms. Thank you.
Please, come in on my side.
Ready, sir? Arms. Order. Arms.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Joseph Hall, badge number 568. I'm the Commemorative Chair for the Society of the Honor Guards from the Unknown Soldier, and I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to open up by thanking the leadership of Arlington National Cemetery, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, the current Sentinels, honored guests, and members of the Society of the Honor Guard, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, as well as those who cannot be here today who have stood to watch before us. Thank you for being here. I would also like to recognize the leadership of the Old Guard, the officers and non-commissioned officers who ensure that the unit functions on a daily basis, as they are the reason Sentinels are even able to stand the watch. Their leadership training and enforcement of standards upon arrival to the unit ensures that the Tomb Guard platoon receives high-caliber soldiers who are then trained and developed further by our current Sentinels and the future generations of Sentinels and leaders within the platoon. I also want to recognize the historians. Their work ensures that this legacy is preserved through documentation, research, and careful preservation of records that ensure what we are commemorating today remains accurate, accessible, and understood for future generations. This isn't just a ceremonial milestone, but a historical one, and their work ensures that that continues. Today we stand on sacred ground, not just because of what lies beneath the marble above us on the plaza, but because of what has been carried forward here for generations. Most of us have heard the story of a general or a soldier who noticed that the people were using the tomb of the unknown soldier as a place to sit and look out over Washington, D.C. It was from that moment that the idea of the Guard began to take shape. Before the United States Army assumed responsibility for guarding the World War I unknown soldier, there were civilian watchmen and women who stood in its presence and recognized its importance. They understood that this was not simply a grave, but a national symbol, and that it required protection, respect, and attention. On March 25th, 1926, the United States Army formally assumed that responsibility with the posting of the 1st Military Guard. That moment did not create the significance of the tomb, but it established the beginning of a structured, disciplined, and enduring standard that has now continued for over a century. Over time, that standard was not defined through written explanation alone, but through the actions of those who carried it out. It became something that was demonstrated rather than described, and it has been reinforced through consistency across multiple generations. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier represents a reality that is difficult to fully express. It represents individuals who served, fought, died, and whose identities were never confirmed. It represents families who never received definitive answers, and it represents a nation that chose to honor those individuals, not as unknown in value, but as unknown in name. The unknown soldier represents thousands, if not millions. It represents sacrifice that cannot be tied to a single story, but instead reflects the collective cost of war. Because of that responsibility to honor, that sacrifice carries a weight that is not just symbolic alone, but something that is real for all tomb guards. From the earliest days of this mission, it has been carried out by multiple units across the Army. The Washington Provisional Brigade, the 3rd Cavalry Regiment, the 12th Infantry, the 13th Engineers, the 703rd Military Police Battalion, all of these played a role in shaping the execution of this duty. In 1953, the 3rd United States Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, assumed responsibility, and since then has maintained and refined the standard that is recognized today. While the units have changed over time, the expectation has remained consistent. The responsibility has always required discipline, attention to detail, and understanding that this duty is not about the individual performing it, but about those being honored. The standard is built deliberately. It was developed through training, reinforced through leadership, and maintained through accountability. It requires leaders who are willing to correct deficiencies, enforce expectations, and ensure that every sentinel who steps out on the mat is fully prepared to represent this mission. That is why recognizing the leadership of the Old Guard is important, as well as the sentinels and the leadership in the platoon. The sentinel on the plaza represents the visible execution of this mission. But behind that sentinel is an entire structure of leadership that ensures that the standard is met. And without leadership, this consistency and precision that defines this duty would not exist. To the active sentinel standing watch today, you guys. The public sees the final product of your training and discipline, but what you represent extends far beyond appearance. You represent the commitment to execute this responsibility without deviation, regardless of conditions or circumstance. You guys always aim that your standard remain professional. This duty is not routine in the traditional sense. While these actions are repeated, the meaning behind them does not diminish with repetition, but each step, each movement, and each moment on the mat serves as a continuation of a promise that has been upheld for over a century. And this promise is to remember. It's to ensure that those who were lost without identification are not lost to history. It is to ensure that their sacrifice is acknowledged in a way that is consistent, disciplined, and unwavering. For those who have previously served as tomb guards, that understanding does not end when the duty assignment ends. The experience of standing the watch carries forward into everything that follows. It shapes perspective, reinforces standards, and establishes an expectation for how responsibilities are approached in all areas of life. This is part of why the legacy has endured. It has not been sustained by policy alone, and it has not been maintained simply because it exists. It has endured because individuals have continuously chosen to uphold it, protect it, and ensure that it remains consistent. As we reflect on this century of military guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, it is important to recognize that this is not the conclusion, but a continuation. There are sentinels standing today who are responsible for carrying this mission forward. There will be sentinels in the future who will assume the same responsibility, and the standard that has been established over this past century will continue to be upheld as long as there are individuals willing to commit to it. The unknown soldier will continue to represent those who gave everything. The sentinel will continue to represent that this promise, that this promise was not forgotten, and through discipline and commitment. And the unknowns, we have not forgotten, and tomb guards never forget. Thank you. And at this time, it is my honor to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Polonia. I almost got it. Of the 3rd Infantry Regiment of the Old Guard.